All right, welcome in everybody. Today we're doing our Illumin release update. So we're going to do a bit of a walkthrough of all of our recent releases, but also some older ones with some features that you may not have noticed in your time with Illumin. Of course, as always, my name is Jacob Devine and I'm the Technical Services Manager here at SoftLink IC. I'm also joined by a couple of my other colleagues who will be managing the chat for you today. So in today's session, we'll cover a few different sort of main elements in Illumin. The first being our attachments and file handling. We'll also look at the main bulk of Illumin, which is your emails, notifications, and reply to options. We'll also look at searching and filtering, working with requests in general, and then some security, accessibility, and admin profiles as well. All right, so let's jump straight into Illumin and we'll start with some more demoable features. And then afterwards, we'll go back to our slideshow and go through a few other features. All right. So jumping straight into Illumin here, I'll zoom out a little bit so that looks a little bit nicer. For those of you that may not have used Illumin before in the past, Illumin is our request management software. So it allows for you to track and manage requests, keeping them all in one central location so that your researchers can track them a little bit better. One of the first things that we're going to be looking at in regards to our new features today is attachments. So obviously there's lots of different ways to manage your attachments within Illumin, but just recently we have allowed the ability to restrict the attachments that can be uploaded to Illumin by their file type. So if you'd like to do this, we can go into Administration, Settings, and once that comes up, we'll go over to Request Settings, and then I can never remember where these all are. There's lots of settings within here, so I'll just do a quick find for file types. I think it's right at the bottom. There we go. So we've got restrict file types. So previously you did have the option to restrict your file types using this big box of file types here. But we now have given you the option to either have unrestricted access, create a whitelist, or a blacklist. So depending on what sort of files you're looking to allow. So for example, if you've got a really short list of files that you want uploaded, maybe you just want PDF and Word documents, you could click whitelist, and then it brings you to our attachment type whitelist. It gives you a few already, but if we wanted maybe only our PDF and Word documents, we just type PDF and docx for our Word documents. You can just enter in any other file types you'd like there, but we notice for most people, the default list is normally enough. So that's not going to allow any other file types to be uploaded against those request records though. Once you've made those changes, as always, make sure to save your request settings at the top here. Perfect. Another one that we've added in terms of our attachments is the ability to search over the contents of your attachments directly from the advanced search. So previously, we did allow for you within the simple search or the basic search, whatever you'd like to call it, to search over the contents of your PDF, Word documents, text files, that sort of thing. But you can also do that now using a filter in the advanced search. So we'll head over to our advanced search, where we can find all of our requests currently in the system. And from here, we can go to our options, update filters, and this is going to allow us to select a new filter. And for the field, we're just going to search for, what's this one called? Attachment content. There we go. So you've got two new fields that you can add into your filters here for attachment content and attachment file name. So if you know what the file name is and you're really looking for that one specific request, you could do that search. Otherwise, if you're just looking for maybe a PDF that contains something about contract law or something similar, you can do an attachment search for that. So for example, if I'm looking for any PDF or Word document that contains law, I can simply do that search, hit apply, and that's going to bring back 4 different requests. And all of these are going to have files attached to them that contain the word law somewhere in them. So depending on how you've uploaded all of those existing files to your system, you may find obviously more or less requests there. Really useful feature, especially if you are one of our sort of power users with the advanced search. Great. Moving right on to our next section now. So we did a couple for attachments, and we've got more that we'll show you a little bit later on once we go back to that slideshow. So the next point that we'll be talking about is our emails and notifications. So obviously the bulk of your work within illumin. So one of the options that we have added is the ability to edit the reply to email when sending a request. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to find a request that's still open. So we've got one here. And when you go to reply using the email option, you now have the option to edit the reply to. So a lot of our customers will use this to add in their own personal work emails to the reply to field. So for example, if I wanted the reply to go not only to our team mailbox, but also to myself, I can change that directly from here. So it comes from the team mailbox as usual, but when that customer replies, it's also going to go to my own mailbox as well. So some customers will prefer that, and that option will stick over multiple replies as well. So all future replies will include now my email in that reply to field. Perfect. That's a nice little one for a lot of our customers were asking for that. So you can now change who your customers are replying to. Next one we'll talk about in terms of our notifications, and this is a big one as well, is the ability to notify your researchers when a request is coming up on its due date. So previously, illumin would only send you that notification once a request has passed its required time. But now, if we go to administration settings, and we'll head over to request settings again, and again, I'll just use my Control F there to search for required time management. There we go. So we've got a brand new area here for required time management. So from here, we can now choose how long a warning period we'd like. So if we want, say, a morning one day rather, for the required time, we can set it like so. Otherwise, there's lots of other preset options for when you would like to consider a request almost due. There is also the option to change those colors. So when you're looking at the advanced search, the required time field currently will show a different color based on how soon it is to being due. So you're able to change now whether it's a warning color, overdue, and then the final option within this section is who to notify. So if you want maybe the team's initial contact to be notified when that request is nearly due, you can tick that box here. But also likely, you probably want to let the person who's actually working on the ticket know as well. Perfect. So that's really useful for those notice periods. A lot of our customers have been using this one sort of recently since we've implemented it, just allowing for your team to customize how long that warning period should be. So you may have requests with 2-3 week requirement periods, so you can lower that warning period to a lower time, like maybe 1 week or 5 days, whatever you'd like. Cool. That then sends that email across to only the person that it's assigned to, even if it's assigned to multiple people, which we'll look at a little bit later, but also the initial contact for your team. Perfect. That's our emails and notifications. The next one that we're going to take a bit of a quick look at is search and filtering. So there's been lots of improvements over the years to searching and filtering with illumin, not only from your basic search, but also from the advanced search. And basic is what we're going to look at first. So we'll go back to the home screen. So right from the top here, where we have our basic search, illumin now allows you to add in some additional filters that might be relevant for your search. So for example, we can tick or untick the option to include attachments. So if you don't want to search over any file attachments on these requests, you can untick that box here. The next option is for our requested time. So you can choose, maybe I only want to see requests that have come through since the 1st of May. Just like in other areas of Illumin or Liberty, if you use that product, you can leave the second box blank, and it will basically do any time after the first date. So anytime after the 1st of May in this case. Same applies if you have no date in the first value, but you do have a date in the second. This one's going to search for all the requests that have been submitted to the system before the 1st of June. Easy enough. Next option is for my requests only. So this will only show you requests, show requests where you are either the assigned researcher or you're one of the additional researchers. So a good way to find those requests that you've been working on, I know when I'm looking in the system, it's a trouble sometimes to find my requests amongst all the ones created by my colleagues. And the very last option is for teams. So you can combine all of these fields together to do specific searches. Maybe I only want to see things that have been submitted by my team, the library team. Or if we wanted to filter it down further, we can add on additional teams as needed. So I know that some of our customers have many teams. Some of you I know have 10 or more. So you can use this to filter through multiple at a time if needed. Great. So you can combine those all together. So if I wanted to just see, for example, everything submitted since the start of 2025, I can then just do that search and it's going to return all those results. I'll do a little law search as well. And that's going to return all of those for me that have been submitted since the 1st of January onwards. Great. Nice little feature there for those filtering options. The next one we'll look at is actually within the advanced search. And that's the ability to allow your researchers, we'll clear this filter to start with, allow your researchers to actually filter by a required time date range. So previously within the filters, you only had the option to filter by required time greater than or less than. So you could only search for things that were maybe required before a certain date or after a certain date. But now you can actually search for requests that are required between a certain date range. So we'll take a look at how that looks. So what have we got? We've got required time here. So you have your default options for greater than, less than, but now we have the option for date range. So it lets you choose a certain range. So for example, if we only wanted to see things that have been submitted this year, and of course, then you can add in as many other filters as you'd like. Hit apply, and we can see those 9 requests that have a required time of this year sometime. So it can be really useful when combined with all of your other filters that you might use in your sort of day-to-day in the advanced search. You can now filter using that date range. There's also the option for between. So if you want to get really sort of granular and you'd like to set the actual specific dates, you can set them from within here as well. Perfect. Next one we're going to move on to now is to do with our forms. So there's lots of different improvements that have been made to forms over the past few years, but we'll start with some of my favorites. So the first one is the ability to quick save any of your forms that you're submitting. So if I, for example, go into new and maybe create a brief request, this gives us just the sort of bare basics. You'll notice immediately that we do have the option for quick save right up the top. So if I enter in a question, that'll do. You can now have the option to quick save a request. You may be asking, what is the difference between quick saving and submit? Quick saving will not trigger any request rules. It's not going to trigger any emails, notifications, things like that. It's simply going to save the request in Illumin as a new request, but allow you to edit it later on, where it will then send off any of your notification emails. So you'll notice immediately that with my quick save, it hasn't gone to the detail page. If I click on cancel, it will bring us to the detail page where we can see any information about that request. We then have the option to edit. And from the edit, if we do submit from here, it will then send out the email notifications and create the request proper. So it's mostly used for sort of drafting up requests. Maybe you need to get additional information from someone before putting it in Illumin. You can quick save and come back to it later. Also with quick saving, you don't need to worry about things like your computer timing out or shutting down or anything like that. It's going to quick save all of that information into Illumin for you, so you never lose any of that progress. Perfect. Next one we've got, and this was sort of a bit of a gripe of mine, is the different save options right at the top here are now sticky to your page. So previously, we've got really long request forms here, and I know that a lot of our customers do as well. When you scroll down, previously you wouldn't be able to see any of the submit or quick save options until you got right to the bottom or scrolled right back up to the top again. But we can see now we have our submit and cancel options pinned directly to the top of your screen. So no matter where you are in the request creation process, you can submit or cancel directly from there. Great. Nice little quality of life update that has been handy for a lot of people, I'm sure. The next one we'll look at is the option to bookmark forms. So previously, obviously, a lot of our customers use forms pretty regularly using things like permalinks. But we've also given you the option to create a brand new bookmark. So if we go to our settings here, and then we go to request settings again, I'll just do a search for bookmark. Oh, it's right up top there, easy. So we've got request form bookmark button, which we'll just tick and then hit save. So what this is going to do is from our different request forms, so in our system, we've got 5 different forms. If we go into one, we now have a new button for bookmark this form. If I click onto that one, it gives you some instructions on how to bookmark this form directly. So the URL in this address bar, if you tried to bookmark this one, it won't work in the future. So using this feature, you can create a new bookmark using this unique link it creates for you, and you can use that then to immediately go back to this form at any point in the future. Nice and handy. Cool. So those are some nice sort of quality of life features for your different forms that you're using. Now, the next one that we'll be looking at, and I talked sort of briefly about this one before, is we're going to look at some of our new researcher and requester features. So the very first one is the ability to add not only additional researchers to a request, but also additional requesters. So I'll go find one of my requests in here and just click edit. We'll see if we don't have additional requesters on that one. I'll go create a new request then. So this is a new field that you can add on to your requests. So our form here has both additional requesters and additional researchers. So using this, you can assign one or more researchers to the same request, but also the same for your requesters as well. So if I wanted to add myself, Susanna, and Callum, all on as additional researchers for this particular request, we can do it using that field, and we can all work then together on this request and have it all assigned to us at the same time. So we all receive the same notifications. It lets us all know when we receive a reply or anything like that without having to subscribe to the request. So really useful if you do have multiple people working on the same request, have them all assigned at the same time, and they'll receive all the same notifications as each other. Similar sort of process for additional requesters as well. So we can add on as many people as we'd like into this field, and they'll all receive the same emails directly from us. There is also the option for additional requesters where you can include them all in the BCC instead of including them all. So for example, if we had this one requested by Nougat, and we add Kitty as our additional requester, when we, I'll just call it example, my brain doesn't have any question examples at the moment. But when we email, we have the option to send this reply to both Kitty and the main requester. You can, of course, use the BCC option as well, and Illumin will take care of the request information for you. Perfect. Now, there is also the option to allow your requesters, when they're requesting, to add on additional requesters themselves. So we've seen this be particularly useful in certain law libraries, where you might have one person that's also doing the request on behalf of someone else. They can add them on as an additional requester, and both users will receive all of the same notifications. So if you would like to do that, of course, the only thing that you'll need to keep in mind is that when you go to definitions and custom forms, if we edit we'll just do research request, add in your additional requesters field, and make sure that it's available for your requesters. Cool. They can then use that field themselves to add on anyone else that they'd like to receive notifications about that request. Next one we're going to look at is request management. This one's a little bit shorter. It doesn't have as much in it, but it does have some features that customers have been asking for quite a while. So previously, when you had a request that you were looking to remove, you had to mark it as spam and then run a bulk process to remove those requests. We've now made it quite a lot simpler. You just have a delete option directly on the right-hand side of your request. Clicking on that one allows you to permanently delete not only the request, but also any emails, attachments, and audit trail history. So it acts as sort of a shred option if you're familiar with the bulk processes. So you can click on delete, and that's it. That request has been removed. Now, the other one that I wanted to show you here was a very, very recent feature, and that's the ability to create recurring requests. So we got a lot of feedback that some requests you may want to reopen on a recurring schedule. So I'll just take this green aviation request, for example. So on the right side, you now have the option to add a recurrence schedule. We click on that one. Now, this acts a lot like the scheduled reports in Liberty. If you've ever used those before, you'll be very familiar with this sort of interface. So what it allows you to do is it allows you to tell Illumin to create additional requests on an automatic schedule. So there's two options. You can either have the request reopened on the regular basis, or you can have an additional child request created every time the occurrence runs. So for example, if you have maybe a certain type of research that you need to do every week on a certain day, you can create the main request and then tick create child request to create that sort of parent-child hierarchy. And we can take a look at what that looks like. We can then select the notification period. So for example, if we wanted, say, every 5 days for the required time to be increased by, we can do that. Otherwise, like it mentions in the little help text at the bottom here, if we leave it blank, there's no delay in reopening or creating the next scheduled request. It will do it immediately. So we'll leave it blank for the moment. Next option is we can tell it how often to create this request. So in our case, we want it to recur every single week on Monday morning. So it's going to create that request for you. And there are some schedule settings as well that determine the required time. So whether it works off the current request or if it creates a new one based on the new request. And just like your Liberty reports as well, you have the option to set a end schedule. So if this is something that you're always going to do every week, you don't see any need to change it, you can leave it as never. Otherwise, you can tell it to end on a certain date or after so many occurrences. So If this is something that we're only going to have to do for, say, this year, and we don't want it to run anymore after this year, we can just set it to the 31st, and illumin is going to cancel that for you. Once we're happy with all of those settings, we can hit save. And that's now created our recurrent schedule. And you can confirm that from the right-hand side where you can edit it. So if there were any changes that you'd like to make afterwards, you can edit those after. We'll cancel that one for now. So now every week on Monday, illumin is automatically going to create a new child request. Now, obviously, it's not Monday, so I can do this manually and show you sort of what the end result is going to look like. So all I'll do is I'll do a copy as child. And we can see here that it's added child to the front of the question, but it kept all of the other details. So this is what illumin will do by default. It will add child to the front of your request name and then submit it. It won't make any other changes to the request. It's just going to add it on from there. And from the parent, you'll be able to see all of the children requests that get added. So if this is something that you're running maybe multiple times a week or even daily, you'll be able to see every single request occurrence from the parent request. Perfect. That's a really useful one for a lot of our customers. So if you do have feedback about that one, we'd be happy to hear it. Next one we're going to look at pretty briefly is the knowledge base. So of course, the knowledge base has had many changes over the year, but recently we have added one little feature that I've liked playing around with, and a couple other customers have made some really cool things with it too. And that is, if we go to the settings, then knowledge base, and we've got an absurdly large logo there, but down to the knowledge base description, you'll notice that we've changed it from a regular text field to a rich text field. So in your description, you can now add in links, images, tables, whatever rich text you'd like. I've even seen one customer try to embed a video into their knowledge base description. So you're able to do whatever you'd like within here, embed additional information, create links, add images, and put it right at the top of your knowledge base. So of course, you can do the simple things like make everything bold, underline it, change the colors, things like that. But you can get a bit more tricky using things like links and images and tables. It does support, if you are a bit more savvy, it does support HTML as well. So if you wanted to import your own sort of HTML, CSS code, you can do that directly from the description there as well. Cool. And of course, like all of the other setting pages, just making sure that you click save to finalize those before you go take a look in your knowledge base. Next thing we'll take a look at, and this is probably one of my favorite features that have been added recently, is the option for redaction and auditing in illumin. So previously we had the whole audit log that shows you everything that happened on a request, but now you have the option to allow for request auditing. So if we go into our request settings here, and I'll just do a search for, audit. There's an option in here now for allow request audit redaction. So we'll tick this one, and that's going to add a new redact button to all of our requests. So we'll go into our advanced search and I'll just find any old request. So what you'll be able to find now is the option to edit and redact any information from the request. Something that has popped up after this one has sort of been requested is some customers will have requests that come in where their customers will share things like personal information, things that you probably don't want keeping in to be kept in illumin. And what this does allow you to do is redact that sort of information. So you can remove it, and it also removes it directly from the audit trail as well. So where you have your audit trail, previously, of course, you could remove information that you didn't want seen, but it would track it within your audit log. So it also removes it from there. So again, under settings, request settings, and my biggest tip, you can just use Control F to search for all of these different requests and settings and things like that. And it's just allow request audit redaction. So whether to allow redaction of request audit data. Great. So we can go back to that request. Just move things around on my screen a little bit. And that was that audit trail as well for the different redaction options. Next one we're going to look at pretty briefly is the option for different themes and accessibility options in Illumin. So under administration and settings, so you've always had the different options for look and feel on your knowledge base, but also in the main Illumin interface. If we go to look and feel, we can now choose not only the default theme, but also any additional themes. So some of the feedback we got was that not every customer liked the default theme that the organization set for them, and they wanted some additional themes. So you can now take any of our default themes or any of the ones that you've created yourself and allow your customers and your researchers to choose between them. So for example, we've got Blitzer, which is this main one that I'm using, but we've also added some additional themes. So if we now go to options, there's now the option for theme, where we can change it to a different theme on the fly, and that updates immediately. Now, of course, it's not just the look and feel that's important there. You also have the option for different high contrast themes. So if we select high contrast, for example, and save, if we go into options, and I'll just have to do a bit of a refresh of my options here. We have the option for high contrast, and that's going to change everything except for that sort of graphical dashboard area. When you change the theme, unlike what I just did there, make sure you hit save options. Otherwise, it's going to turn back when you go to the next screen. I'll change that back now. Cool. And that was the other feature that I was going to talk about there was our different high contrast themes. So we have added quite a few different themes to match sort of the Microsoft standard for accessibility. So we have things like UI darkness and lightness. We can take a look at those. I'll just do a refresh. So you've now got these options based on different people's requirements. So good option if you do need to enable those different high contrast themes. Your researchers and requesters will both have access to those. Great. All right. So that was all of the features that we're going to showcase live. The next part that we're going to do is we're going to jump back into our slides and we're going to take a look at some features with my colleague, Susanna. So I'll hand over to Susanna.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jacob. Now, in the interests of keeping this technologically simple, I thought I'd just scoot on over. I'm assuming everyone can hear my voice through Jacob's microphone. I never have a problem with voice projection. How great a job does Jacob do showcasing all of the wonderful things we've delivered in Illumin over the last little bit. But enough jibber jabber from me. The next little bit we're going to do is have a look at some features that we thought might not demo so well in a live environment, but also would be useful to know that we've delivered them. So we've got a couple of slides to go through. More than anything, as a reminder, if you rewatch this recording, you can have a look at the feature and it's linked to the release that it sits in. So without further ado,
Yes.
If you had to choose one, Jacob, which would be your favorite one we've delivered for attachments over the last little bit?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's say the anonymous attachments permitted.
Oh, yes, I quite like that because we're all about features and permission control. So a good one to have.
Exactly.
All right, who's pressing the button for the next? I let you, Jacob.
Yes. So for the next one, for email and notifications, so we've got a lot here. And as well, if you do have any issues with finding out how to use these features after the fact, or you can't find the release notes, just shoot the support desk an email And we can send you through the release notes and some instructions on how to use it as well if you're interested.
Absolutely. So if I had to pick a favorite for this one, it would be having the recipient's time zone in emails. So for those of you working across different time zones in a global team, I think this would be a really useful feature to have some visibility of. So
Yeah,
definitely a good one.
exactly. Used to only show the time zone of the research team, but now it actually does it for the person that you're sending the email to. So that's really useful.
That is useful. Now, the emails and notifications spilled over onto a second slide. We've made plenty of handy little features updates here. Jacob, which one would be your favorite from here?
Definitely the notification notes for all notified people. So you can send off those emails and have multiple requesters and things like that. But the notification notes now get sent to everyone, not just the requester for the initial request. Lots of requests today. Um, very, very handy. I know a lot of people have hundreds of people attached to some of their emails in Illumin, so having everyone notified at the same time is perfect.
That's awesome. Excellent. All right, you're up, Jacob.
Yes,
Search and filtering.
search and filtering. Which one of these do I like the most?
I mean, come
Probably,
on, autocomplete for
yes,
large.
exactly. Autocomplete for the large option list. So I know some of our customers have option lists with hundreds, if not thousands sometimes, of different options. So having the ability to just autocomplete rather than scroll through that massive list is actually a game changer. I know a lot of people were really excited about that at our last user group meeting last year.
Awesome. Excellent.
On
All
to the
right.
next one.
Yes, absolutely.
Request rules and assignments. Do we just want to go through all of these? There's not too many for the next 3 slides, so we may as well just go through all of them.
Yeah.
So request rule reassignment. So this is a bit of a sort of a fix for duplicate notifications that were sent out. So rules are now ignored when the assignee sets that explicit use default processing option. So you have all of the different options for your notifications, but if you use the default, the duplicate notifications won't happen anymore. Request rules for default assignee is sort of a big one here as well. So previously, when you were using custom forms with a default assignee, so you might have someone in your team that always does every document request or research request or what have you. So Illumin now will ignore those rules that you have set in place if you use a default assignee. So it's always going to use the default assignee rather than using those rules that come in.
That sounds really useful.
Yes.
Really useful.
And the last one there is reassigning requests when archiving a researcher. So previously, if you had someone that left your organization, their requests would just sit there forever. But now you get given reassignment options. So Illumin will prompt you to reassign them to a particular researcher if needed. But you can also do a little CSV import, or if you use the API, if you're a bit more technically savvy, you get given the option to reassign all of those requests as well when archiving.
That's a great feature.
Yes,
I like
I
that.
really like that one.
I like that a lot.
Still in request management, so override request locks for the same user. So we had some issues where people were switching between computers a lot and logging in obviously as the same user, and they were locking themselves out and they'd have to run across the office to their old computer and get out of it. So now if you're logged in as the same user on multiple computers and you've locked a request, you can now unlock it yourself. You don't have to wait for it to expire or log out on the other computer. You can just click a button and it's done.
Probably not going to help you get your steps up for the day,
No, that's right.
running across the room to your other computer, but alas, probably better for the workflow.
Exactly. Removed option list values retained. So requests will now keep the removed options values until the field is changed. So if you're constantly changing the values that are allowed in those custom fields you create, that's going to be a big one for you.
Nice.
Perfect.
I was just checking the Q&A and chat, but that's good. We're all good. Let's go. Knowledge base.
This is a really good one, and one I was kind of thinking about showing in the session today, but decided against it. So you now have the option to do default knowledge base search modes. So previously, It would just be a keyword search no matter what. There was no option to change it. But now you can actually change the knowledge base to search over just the question, just the answer, or just the details. So you can only search for exactly what you're looking for. And that applies, of course, both to your researchers and your requests.
That's awesome. That makes the knowledge base even more powerful, I guess, because
Exactly.
it's going to surface stuff exactly as people are expecting.
Yeah. The other one there is retaining knowledge base articles in a purge. So this came along with the option to delete your requests. It also allows you to choose whether you'd like the knowledge base articles to stay when you purge your requests. So if you have a request that's been assigned to a knowledge base article and you don't want it to be deleted, but you do want to get rid of the request, you can do that now.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
that.
Sometimes you want to keep your knowledge base articles, but you don't want the request there, so you can do that. Analytics, everyone's favorite. So department and external ID dimensions, that's a developer way of saying you can now report on departments and external IDs. So in the request cube, you now can get shown department name and external ID, so you can include those in all of your different reports. And the other one is user last login date. So similar to what we did recently with Liberty as well. With Illumin, you can now record and report on the requester and researcher's last login pages, last login dates rather. And as the release note there says, it can also be done via the API. So I know that a few of you do a lot of sort of external reporting using the Illumin APIs, which is very, very powerful. So there's a lot that can be done there.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah. Performance. Of course, over the years, we have had many, 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 many performance improvements. You've read the release notes and you see the performance improved. So there's lots of fixes and performance improvements with things like your activity feeds, the autocomplete performance. So when we brought in that options list, performance improvements came alongside that. And the analytic query timeout as well was increased to 5 minutes. So if you are one of our customers that have hundreds or millions of requests, you can now do much, much, much larger reports without the fear of it failing because it took too long. Admins, users, and sessions. Do you want to talk through these, Susanna?
Well, I was a bit excited to read about the session heartbeat, which I think is a great idea. So it will expire the session if the browser contact is lost. So the default is set to 5 minutes, but don't worry, like just about everything in Illumin, it is configurable. Now, the other two involves the team member dialogue hiding archived users. So another handy feature if you've got people who are no longer with the team, but you still want to be able to see them at some point. And then also another little archive improvement where you can archive client codes with active requests. I don't know why these end up being such tongue twisters, but here we are. And now on this also, I was going to say, for those of you who are eagle-eyed, you will probably realize that we are well beyond release 0.16.0. We're actually up to 0.11, I think, Jacob.
1.1, exactly,
Yes.
16.11.
So between then and now, we've had quite a few small releases, which have been patch updates or some custom development work. So all of those release notes are available, but what we wanted to do today was just focus on some of the things that we wanted to surface to help you day to day.
Yeah,
So I thought
exactly.
I'd point that out.
Perfect. So that does bring us sort of to the end of the session, but we have, if you do have any questions, feel free to contact the support desk there, or visit our website. And if you would like any more information on any of the features that we've shown today, please get in touch. All of the release notes are available through Illumin, but you can contact us if you have any issues, of course. Perfect. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us again today, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.